What's up guys, it's Endymion, and today I want to explore the lore behind one of my favorite characters within Elden Ring, the fabled son of Blasphemy, Praetor Rykard. So, let's begin. Rykard was the son of King Radagon and Queen Rennala. He, along with his siblings Radahn and Ranni, were born amidst a love that blossomed through the chaos of war, as the Golden Order tried to bring the Academy of Raya Lucaria to its knees, only for the leaders of both sides falling for each other instead. Eventually, Ranni, Rykard's sister, would devise a plot to murder Godwyn, and the Shattering War would begin as a result. Ranni wished to free the world from the Greater Will's influence, and it seems that Rykard knew of Ranni's plan and wished to help her. The blasphemous clause states, "A slab of rock engraved with traces of the Rune of Death can deflect the power of the Black Blade." On the night of the dire plot, Ranni rewarded Praetor Rykard with these traces. Should the coming trespass one day transpire, they would serve as a last resort foil, allowing Rykard to challenge Malekith the Black Blade, the Black Beast of destined death. So it seems Rykard was plotting with Ranni all along, but Rykard knew his power wouldn't be enough to stop something as fearsome as Malekith, which led Rykard to the volcanic region of Mount Gelmir as he sought power for himself and his cause. Once reaching Mount Gelmir, Rykard would discover the existence of a primordial godlike serpent. The serpent god's curved sword states, "Curved sword fashioned in the image of an ancient serpent deity and tool of a forgotten religion practiced on Mount Gelmir, formerly used to offer up sacrifices." This God-Devouring Serpent seems to be some sort of ancient being native to Gelmir. Whether it's the product of an outer god or simply a creature born of nature, I can't really say. But it is definitive to say that the serpent was worshipped well before Rykard arrived, and the various shrines made in the form of the serpent seems to confirm that the serpent was indeed viewed as a god amongst the inhabitants of Gelmir. And upon discovering this sacred serpent god, Rykard's ambitions would become reality. His plan to overcome the power of Queen Marika, Malekith, and the Golden Order would be not a path of direct warfare, but of sacrilegious blasphemy. Rykard would make a pact with this serpent god, and it's said within the lore of Rykard's great rune that Rykard offered himself to the serpent god to be devoured so he and the serpent would become one. This unholy communion of demigod and serpent would usher in the era of a being known as the Lord of Blasphemy. But why would Rykard allow himself to be devoured? Well, it seems the serpent god had shared something with Rykard that caused him to embrace the path of blasphemy. The Devourer's scepter states, "Scepter in the shape of a serpent devouring the world. This weapon will one day become the very symbol of the Lord of Blasphemy." A vision of the future briefly seen by Rykard in his final moments before being devoured by the Great Serpent. This vision may have shown the power Rykard would inherit if he became one with the Serpent God, and the possibility at overpowering not only Marika, but the Golden Order itself seemed to be too tantalizing for Rykard, and so he agreed to the communion. Eventually, Rykard and the Serpent would seek worthy warriors to join their cause in devouring the gods themselves. This would attract a Crucible Knight as well as a mysterious dancer named Tanith. The consort's mask states, "Mask worn by Tanith, Lady of the Volcano Manor, in the image of a foreign queen." Long ago, when Rykard first set eyes on Tanith, she was working as a dancer in a foreign land. Soon he made her his consort. She was the only human to remain by his side when he became the Serpent of Blasphemy. In that moment, Tanith was truly charmed by him. Tanith would become Rykard's right hand and would send out emissaries like Raya to go out into the world in search of powerful Tarnished to join and strengthen their cause. These Tarnished warriors who joined the Volcano Manor would be sent out on missions by Tanith to kill and claim the power of other Tarnished. The very fact that Rykard and his followers actively seek to pit fellow Tarnished against one another was already sacrilegious in the eyes of the Greater Will. These powerful Tarnished would devote themselves to Rykard's philosophies to one day be granted audience with the Lord of Blasphemy. And eventually, Tanith would allow these brave warriors to meet with her lord, but the reality behind the Volcano Manor and its owner was much darker than even these warriors could have known. The spell, Rykard's Rancor, states, These spirits manifest from the rancor of heroes who met a violent end. The Lord granted them an audience, whereupon they were welcomed by the maw of the great serpent, and within the serpent's bowels they became the Lord's kin. So these warriors would be rewarded for their bravery and skill by ultimately being devoured themselves by Rykard to empower him so he could grow more powerful and eventually take down Queen Marika and the Golden Order. This twisted reward of servitude would only be met with painful, unending bloodshed and death, as the secret of Volcano Manor was kept from every disciple except Tanith. Eventually, the Chosen Tarnished would arrive upon the Volcano Manor and be accepted into their ranks, and Tanith would deem the Chosen Tarnished as being a worthy sacrifice for her lord and would allow the meeting to happen. And upon entering his room, the madness of Rykard's philosophies would become ever clear in their insanity. The corpses of hundreds, if not thousands of people would litter the halls like discarded playthings, and in the middle would sleep an eternal serpent. But there would also be a weapon found in this hall too, the Serpent Hunter states. Thought to have been used to hunt an immortal great serpent in the distant past, it manifests a long blade of light when facing such a creature. When their master's heroic aspirations degenerated into mere greed, his men searched for a weapon with which they might halt their lord. This weapon was a relic found by the disillusioned followers of Rykard, who saw the madness of his plans and wished to stop their lord before the serpent could claim any more victims. Eventually, Rykard would reveal his true self during this fight and show just how far gone and malicious he had become in order to realize his goals, even so much as lodging his hand into the serpent god's mouth to pull out a massive blade covered in red tendrils. This weapon is called the Blasphemous Blade, and it states, "Sacred sword of Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, remains of the countless heroes he has devoured writhe upon the surface of this blade. Now they share the same blood, bound together as family." As if devouring thousands of people wasn't enough, Rykard would forge the bodily remains of his followers into a sword that was capable of challenging the gods themselves. The red tendrils are each a devout follower's membrane or flesh reaching out to rejoin or maybe even flee their lord. But through mortal combat, Rykard and the serpent god would be slain by the Chosen Tarnished in combat, bringing about an end to the blasphemous demigod's plans of devouring the other gods within the lands between. And as if that wasn't messed up enough, once you return and tell Tanith of Rykard's death, she leaves the Volcano Manor and can then be found within the boss room. Here we can find Tanith not only mourning the death of her lord, but actively eating his mutated remains in hopes that by ingesting Rykard and the serpent god's flesh, they may one day be reborn anew with Tanith as their new host. And she may be right, since when we look at the head of Rykard that remains, the tendrils are still active and seeking communion. So maybe the serpent god can never truly be killed, like a cancer that constantly spreads looking for anything it can consume to increase its own strength. This act of consuming flesh seems to be something the followers of Blasphemy embrace, since before reaching the manor you can find multiple groups of soldiers all on their knees devouring their fallen comrades instead of mourning them, likely believing that by consuming the flesh of others they too can become strong and eternal like Rykard was. It seems that Rykard's plans would eventually lead to him becoming powerful enough to devour Malekith, Godfrey, and eventually Marika herself if the serpent was powerful enough to do so. And if that were to happen, Rykard would have become the most powerful demigod of them all, but the price would be paid by the thousands of lives that were sacrificed so one man could realize his insane visions of power. This is all capped off by the remembrance of the Blasphemous, which states, "Rykard took the form of a giant serpent that he might devour, grow, and live eternally. I understand the road of blasphemy is long and perilous, one cannot walk it unprepared to sin." And in the end, the man who became the Lord of Blasphemy would find no solace or power, but instead only the cold embrace of utter oblivion for the crimes of his own ambition. The serpent would lay silent and hungry forever in its own failure. And that, my friends, is the story of Praetor Rykard and the God-Devouring Serpent. So, what do you think of this character and his story? I love it. It's awesome, but let me know what you think in the comments below. And let me know what else you'd like to see. This video was a lot of work, so please like, subscribe, and share to give my life meaning. Thank you. And as always, thanks to my patrons for all their support. And I'm Endymion. I'll see you in the next one.